Good morning, everyone. I am Jetro Ventura, and we're going to talk about Internet System Design. This chapter describes the structure and components of Internet systems, the technologies and language involved in Internet System Design, including XHTML, JavaScript, JSP, servlets, and Flash. We will also discuss issues of usability, portability across browsers, and how to ensure that certain standards for accessibility are met. First, we're going to discuss about the fundamentals of internet system design, then the design and the design process. Many software systems today operate across the internet. This allows users to access the system from a computer with a browser anywhere in the world. A few examples of these are for online banking, travel agency, online shopping, and even online voting. In an internet system, visual presentation and information content are often just as important as the software capabilities. In the next slides, we're going to know why. The three areas of development: 1. Software capabilities, 2. Visual appearance and behavior, 3. Information content. Different systems requires different combinations of these areas. For example, in a development of a university website, you should mostly focus on the second and third aspect, focusing on informing readers about the university in a visually appealing and interesting manner. While, for an online banking system, one should focus more on the system capabilities such as fund transfers, electronic payments, and other services. But we should take note that all of these areas are important, and failing on one of them can impact the design of the system. Software capabilities is development of the software which receives, processes, and returns information to the client. Next is the visual appearance and behavior. It is the development of the visual appearance and behavior of the web pages. For example, animation, software flash. Lastly, the information content. This is where we decide on the information content of the web pages. For example, the choice of words and what information to emphasize on the website. Typical structure of internet application. As you can see on this diagram, here is the client on the computer requesting a response from the application server. This request is sent by the HTTP GET or HTTP POST request. On the application server, it is processed on the servlets, and if there are needs for operations on the database, then the SQL commands are given to the database, which then returns it to the application server and then pass it to the client. As shown earlier, there are two ways client side of an internet application sends information to the server side. This is through using HTTP GET and HTTP POST. HTTP GET requests send information to the server as part of the request URL. Data values appear after a question mark sign in the URL. For example, this one is the first parameter and its value, second parameter and its value, and so on. While HTTP POST requests send information to the server in a separate message body and not on the URL. This is usually coded within a system. Here are the difference between HTTP GET and HTTP POST request. HTTP GET on browsers can cache the result, thus redisplaying is faster, since the parameters and the values is already included on the URL. But some browsers have URL length limit, thus limiting the parameters you can get. While for HTTP post, you can use unlimited parameters by declaring it on the system. And it is more secure since the data being transmitted is not visible in the URL. In the next slides, we're going to tackle about the Internet System Technologies. For the client side, JavaScript and Flash, while on the server side, the JSP, ASP, PHP, and servlets. First, JavaScript or JS. JS is a scripting language that gives you the ability to enhance your website by creating interactive, dynamic, and personalized page. JS can be used to validate the form before sending to the server using HTTP GET or POST. While Flash is an animation language for web pages. This allows movie-like visual effects to be embedded in pages. Flash may also be used to make pages visually appealing and distinctive to increase visitors of the web pages. Next is the Internet System Technologies for server-side, JSP, or Java Server Pages. JSP is a type of Java servlet that is designed to fulfill the role of a user interface for a Java web application. JSP are written as text files that combine HTML and XHTML code, XML elements, and embedded JSP actions and commands. The result of processing are returned as web pages. ASP or Active Server Pages is another server-side Internet System technology. It is a server-side scripting for Windows servers, using Visual Basic as the scripting language. ASP scripts are embedded on the web pages that triggers them, and can access and update the server data directly. The result of processing are presented by generating a web page and returning it to the client browser. Then we have PHP, or Hypertext Preprocessor. It is an open source, platform independent, server side scripting language. String matching and manipulation using regular expressions. The output to the client is via web pages generated by the script. While servlets is a pure Java server-side technology. The methods of servlets classes respond to HTTP GET and POST requests. and generate web pages which are returned for display on the client browser. Next, on the fundamentals of Internet system is the online databases. Online databases is an essential form of many Internet systems in which data stored on the server can be queried, augmented, or modified by a web page interface. The submit action on a web page display may initiate one of the following operations. Create adds a new row to the table, while delete removes them. Edit modifies one or more attributes of the row. Then check is to compare values entered on a form to a database value. List display request rows, while add is for creating foreign key link from table row to another. And then remove is to remove an instance from a role set. Next is the Internet system design. Things to consider in developing an online application system. First, determining the needed data and how the database will be created. Also, if relational database will be used. Next, you should consider what actions are needed on each web pages. Example, create, update, delete, and list, and other operations such as reset, which clears the field of the form. Also, identify the valid criteria for the data input, and consider the interaction of the user with the system. What informations are needed on each web page, what data is needed, and how to enter data. In this presentation, we are going to use an example, an online system which enables house buyers to register their requirements on a website and then view properties which will match their requirements. Shown here on the image on the left is the use case of property search system. Here, we identify which actions can the customer do on the internet system. First is to the register user by create, update details through edit, or remove the user, delete. Search by get, list all in the information needed, log in to add. On the right side is the class diagram of property search system. Here we are going to show an example for the constraints that will be used on the system. For C1, the one attached on the user here, a user's minimum price must be at least 0 and less than or equal their maximum price choice. Next is the C2, where the user is connected to the property. A property matches a user's requirements if it is in their price range, availability, has at least the number of bedrooms, type, and area. Here is the PSM or platform specific model of the property search system. Here we have identified the forms that will be needed for the internet system and the relationship of each forms. While here is a sample registration form for the internet system. We should always remember that forms should be no larger than necessary. We should only collect data only relevant for the system. And also, to make the form less prone to data error, adding selections could be made or by using JavaScript to check the validity of fields. Design of the visual and information content involves considering the following: aesthetics, that the pages project a positive image of the organization that they are designed for; usability, that the users can effectively use and navigate through the website to find the information or services that they require; portability, that the web pages can be viewed on usual browsers, for example, Google Chrome, Internet Explorer, Mozilla; accessibility, users with different abilities, such as older or disabled users, should be able to use the web page; aesthetics, intended audience of a site is probably the most important factor in deciding the appearance of a website. Example: for a state agent or stockbroker, a professional appearance without flashy video and audio should be used. But for school children, a cartoon-like appearance using bright colors and animations will be best. Usability. Users should be able to achieve functions that the system is supposed to support without excessive effort. Information should be presented in a clear manner, and command buttons are recognizable. We should also note that aesthetic issues may conflict with the usability. For example, if you are using a black text with a dark color background, it will be hard for the site visitors to read the information you have provided. Portability. The system developer should take into account that the system will render on most popular web browsers. For example, Google Chrome, Internet Explorer, Mozilla Firefox. The system developer should also ensure that the scripting language used is working on those browsers. Portability. Page intended for users from different countries should express dates, lengths, weight, etc. in internationally comprehensible terms. Always include units to make clear what is intended. An example for this is using the date 3/5/1999. This may mean differently for a user who is a resident of the USA to a user resident of the UK. Accessibility. Take into consideration that some users may have different abilities. Some may be partially sighted, colorblind, or have hearing impairments. Good contrast between colors used on the page. Use of a readable font size. Should also ensure that images and other visual elements have alternative text descriptions or ALT. The system developer may also use video subtitles to take account of hearing impaired users. Improving a website to make it accessible for disabled users can also improve its usability to all users. In some circumstances, it may also be a legal requirement or to help avoid legal actions. Here's an example from the 2000 Olympics. This article was posted by The Guardian August 30, 2000. The official Sydney Games website may be fined for violating anti-discrimination laws after a blind fan was unable to retrieve Olympic information from the site. The site's key failing is the absence in many areas of alt tags, text descriptions of maps, and images which can be converted into Braille. Another example is from the Philadelphia Inquirer, titled How Your Small Business Website Can Get You Sued. As said in the article, a U.S. Supreme Court decision has opened the floodgates for businesses to be sued under the Americans with Disabilities Act. Your website better comply or you could face legal consequences. It continued, the issue received national attention after a decision in October by the U.S. Supreme Court to let stand a lower court ruling that opened the door for blind people to sue Domino's Pizza for not making its website accessible. The vast majority of claims are asserted by visually impaired individuals who use a screen reader, software that enables the users to have content on a website read aloud to them when they move their cursor over the information on the website, but claim that they tried to access certain information on the business's website using their screen reader but could not because the website was not coded properly so as to be compatible with the screen reader. Next, in the design of Internet system is the client-side design JavaScript. Two primary uses of JavaScript in an Internet application. First, to provide interactive features on a web page, such as pop-up messages when mouse pointer is hovering over command button. This explains its purpose. Client-side design using JavaScript. Here are the most frequently used events. First event is the onload. It occurs when the page first loaded into browser. Its location is on the body tag. On the event onload is where you declare the constants and sometimes where you declare the connection to your database. The event onClick occurs as the mouse click over an element. Its location is in the element tag. Event onClick is usually used for buttons. On mouse move, it occurs when the mouse moves inside the element. Its location is within the body tag. While the event mouse over is when the mouse enters the element. Its location is in the element tag. If you are wondering between the difference of the mouse over and the mouse move event, here is an example. The mouse over triggers as the mouse enters the element, while the mouse move triggers continually as it is within the element. Next is the on mouse out. It occurs when the mouse leaves the element and is located on the element tag. On focus. It occurs when the form element is selected by click or tap. It is located on the element tag. While the on blur event is the opposite of the on focus. On blur occurs when a different form element is selected by click or tap. It is also located on the element tag. While the on submit event, it occurs when the form is submitted or a button is pressed. It is located on the form tab. We also have the on DBL click. It occurs when the mouse is double clicked and is located on the body tag. Another is the on change. On change occurs when the form element data is changed. It is located on the element tag, while the onResize occurs when the window or frame is resized. Its location is in on the body or the frame tag. Another is the onReset event. It occurs when the form reset or a button is pressed. It is located on the form tab. Next is the onAbort. It occurs when the image downloaded is cancelled. Location, image tag. We also have onHelp event. It occurs when the help key or F1 is pressed. It is included on the body tag. Another is the on key down when a key is pressed and on key up when a key is released. Sorry. It is also included on the body tag. The next primary use of JavaScript in an internet application to carry out some of the application's processing on the client side and checks the form's data validity before being submitted. Here is an example validation we can create for the registration form. First is we should check that 0 is less than the min price and the min price is less than the max price. Next is the name size should be greater than 0 and the bedrooms should also be greater than 0. We can check those using this validation. Here is an example where it was created a function check name. If the document username value dot length is greater than 0, there is no condition. Else, window alert name cannot be empty. The next validation we can perform is by using the function isNumber or by creating the function isNumber. IsNumber and then it was supplied by a string. It checks if is none or is a number. Then we parse or convert to float value the input value and it should return false. Else true. The next function is integer. It returns the is number string here and str.index of that equals -1. This means that it removes the value after the dot or the period. The next function is the check mean price. The check mean price checks if it is an integer, the user mean price value. Then if it is, the user mean price value is equals to parse int document user mean price. It just convert the value of the user mean to an int. Or else it pops a window with window alert not an integer, then returns the value. The next validation is to check the max price. As you can see, it is like what we have used for the min price. And for function check bedrooms, it checks if it is an integer, the document user bedroom's value. If it is, then the document user bedroom's value is converted into int type. Then, I've created a variable for bedroom x, which adds the value of the parseInt of the user bedrooms. It is to check if the bedrooms is greater than or equal to 0, or it should send an alert that the bedrooms must be greater than 0. And here is the else that it checks if the bedroom number is an integer. It returns not an integer and the value. As you can see, it also created a function form submit. It validates if the max price and the min price here supplied to a variable, then it checks if the min price is greater than 0 and that the max price is greater than the min price. If these conditions are met, then there are no errors. Else, it pops a window alert that prices are not valid. Interaction design. Describing the interaction behavior of an internet system in terms of what sequence of pages are displayed to the user and the effect of the user commands. On the figure shown here, the user interaction state machine of a property system. On the login, you can see the index.html. This is the view page. If you are a new user, you are redirected to the register user.html. After submitting in this form, to register and add new user to the user table in the command HTML. Then, if you are already a member, you just proceed with logging in with your valid name and valid email. Then you will be displayed to the results. These are all the properties matching your user requirements. Also, you can edit what kind of requirements you like, and you'll be redirected to the edit user, which then sends the updated information to command to process it and to update the database. Then after that, it will then show you the new results that you have in your requirements. There is also an option that if you would like to remove your account, then you will be redirected to the remove user.html. After proceeding with the submit, then you will be removed from the user table. In interaction design, when reviewing the design, we must check that it supports all the requirements while minimizing the effort needed for the customer to achieve the desired functionality. While here is a sample registration form for the internet system. We should always remember that forms should be no larger than necessary. We should only collect data only relevant for the system. And also, to make the form less prone to data error, adding selections could be made or by using JavaScript to check the validity of fields. If you remember earlier, this is the example you have used for the sample registration form. On the next slides, we're going to tackle on reviewing the design and how you can improve it. Design review. After defining the components and behavior of the Internet system, we review the design and identify which aspects can be improved. Example, limiting the user to search the properties with login discourages them from browsing. Some users will prefer that if they are searching for a property, there will be directly shown to a dashboard where you can browse properties without logging. So this could be a con or a disadvantage for your internet system if you would require them to register and log in. Then number two, rather than relying on scripts to check the values, we may also use a drop-down selection for the number of bedrooms. Um, some, if you are expecting a specific set of results, it is better to use a drop-down selections rather than using scripts to check the value and then allowing them to enter random characters or values, but you're just expecting an integer value. Number three, forms should indicate which fields are mandatory and which are optional. Usually, an asterisk is placed beside the field. Number four, adding contact information on the agent or property owner for the customer to be able to further inquire about the listing. Server-side design, defining SQL statements. SQL provides a simple programming language, using statements such as insert, select, update, and others to modify and access database data. Here are some examples for the SQL statement. For edit user, we use the SQL update, and for delete user, we use the delete from, but some they prefer that they do not delete the data and just update a certain status which is inactive or whatever they prefer. A check user, which we usually execute by select statement, then another select statement to get the user matches. This is from comparing values that the user have provided with the values that are available on the database. Create user, we use the insert SQL statement. Server-side design, secure SQL statements. Validate data input before executing SQL statements. Use parameterized queries to prevent attacks. If possible, execute queries with the least possible privilege. Here is an example why we should use secure SQL statements. On this example, this was the select statement that was used. Select ID from or title body from table post where text then equal the string text declared, or this could be the value from the text box where the user have input here. Here is an example that a user is trying to destroy or attack your system. If they put anything, this percent 27 percent 20 or percent 20 percent 27 1 percent 27 equals percent 271, it is actually translated to this value. um Single quote anything, single quote or single quote 1, single quote equals single quote 1, single quote 1. If this was run into your system, it would create something like this. Select ID, title, body from table post where text equals anything or 1 is equals 1. By this 1 equals 1, since this would always be true, then it would list all the information on your database. We should be careful with this because if there are some client sensitive data, it would already be exposed to the attacker. As I have explained earlier, by using this specific query or trying this specific query, the queries where clause is now has an additional condition that tests whether 1 is equal to 1, which is always true, thus retrieving all records. Sensitive customer data may be shown. That's why we have to always be careful when we have SQL statements like this. Another way to secure SQL statements is by the use of parameterized queries to prevent attack. For the example string here, as shown, string SQL select ID title body from table post where text equals question mark. Then actually by the use of the prepared statements set string, this limits the number of columns that will be executed. Here it says 1. And then here is the text provided, the string or the input on the text box by the user. This limits that in this query there should also only be one parameter to be checked. The last step for the internet system design is the design process and reviewing what we have learned from the previous chapters on the fundamentals and the design. On the design process for the internet system, provided below are the design steps. This is just the review of what we have tackled earlier. First, we have to define the data model of entities involved. Number 2, identify the operations required from the system. Number 3, define page, invariants, and any client-side scripts to check or enforce this. 4, define the visual design and information contents of pages. Number 5, once a prototype of the system is created, you have to check the accessibility and portability requirements have been met. An evaluation involving usability trials with typical users. Number 6, identify the needed database interaction and define the SQL queries. We have to remember that some of these steps can be performed in parallel or in alternative orders. It depends on the developer, but here are the important steps that needs to be taken in creating an internet system. That's all. Thank you for listening.